here we have the carriages just entering the bottom of the straight mile, and I can tell you that in the first carriage we do indeed have His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen with Lord and Lady Bamford.
Yes, so wonderful. Lord and Lady Bamford, they're so special. Claude, my wife, and I were very fortunate to have lunch with them yesterday, and you know, he's an incredible businessman, and she's an incredible businesswoman. He, of course, has JCB, the great digger company, worldwide success story for Britain, and Lady Bamford, the first, apart from the King, now King, to actually, you know, have a totally sustainable farmland. You know, the thousands of acres that they own is all very much sustainable, and Dalesford, of course, is her business. I was going to say, they've
got quite a posh farm shop, haven't they?
It's a very posh farm shop with amazing things within it, but everything is organic, and her enthusiasm and her ability, her style, it's quite extraordinary. So they are a really remarkable couple, and it's lovely to see them in the carriage with the King and Queen.
Well, do you know, Harry, unusually I actually have some fashion detail for those at home that like that type of thing. And Her Majesty the Queen is wearing a duck egg blue coat dress by designer Anna Valentine, based in London. And also that wonderful feathered hat by Philip Tracy, who's a London milliner, of course. She's also wearing the late Queen's Jardine Star diamond brooch. Looking sensational. I have to say, it looks breezier out on the track, Harry, than it is here, because I'm looking at the Royal Standard and it's not really got much activity.
No, but it's sort of perfect weather, really, isn't it? This is what Royal Ascot is all about, and of course this site is something that is so special and seen all around the world, and much envied, I think, by everybody.
And there we can see Princess Beatrice with Mr. Edoardo Mappelli-Mozzi and Lord and Lady Frederick Windsor.
Yeah, no, well, there again, it's, you know, the youth,
yes,
the future generations. Yes, I saw Freddie Windsor the other day, and he was in great form. And I think this Royal Ascot, bringing the royals together and bringing them in, you know, as I say, in a carriage or in public, we can see them all together, is so special. And when I said to some Americans, friends who were over, you know, that do you want to see the royal procession? It was like, it wasn't do we, it's like we want to get front row of the stalls, and this is something we wouldn't miss for anything in the world.
I think sometimes we take the tradition for granted in this country. It's great to be able to see it up close and personal.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It is a sight no one could ever tire of. Those beautiful horses, beautiful Landau carriages, and seeing the King and the Queen at the forefront is very special.
In the third carriage, we have General Sir Patrick Sanders, Lady Sanders, and Mr. and Mrs. Peter Troughton.
Yes, of course, General Sir Patrick Sanders, former head of the British Army, highly decorated general, and you know, remarkable record, so wonderful to see him. And of course Mrs. Troughton, one of the 6 companions that the Queen has to, you know, help her through her daily life. And in fact, I think that she was also, or is, the first ever Lady Lord Lieutenant of Wiltshire. And I think that was a sort of 16th century scenario. So although she's called a Lord Lieutenant, she's actually a Lady Lieutenant.
Yeah, do you know, I love that. I think that's absolutely magnificent. So we love to hear stories like that. Looks like they're having a good conversation on the way up, having had lunch, Harry. They have lunch in Windsor Castle, I believe.
Yes, lunch at the castle, and then into the carriages in Windsor Park, and this very fortunate, done it a couple of times. It's an incredible scenario, and of course there's Darcey Bussell.
We know Darcey Bussell. We know Darcey Bussell, prima ballerina, of course, one of the most famous people that from the world of ballet, I guess, in the modern era. Mr. Angus Forbes and Mr. and Mrs. Henry de Bromhead, who had some exciting news actually recently, because Honeysuckle had her first foal. She had a filly by Walk in the Park.
Oh my goodness, bred in the purple.
Oh, I mean, wonderful. We can't wait for the filly to make it to the track, but it's great to see them getting the honour of a ride in the carriage.
And of course Henry's got a few flat horses now too, so we better watch out.
Yes.
You know, it's not just the jumping side of things that he can be at the top of his game at. Now we're gonna have him, you know, very much as an opposition in the flat world.
Yeah, which is always dangerous. It's a bit like Willie Mullins here this week, isn't it? You fear
Always.
them, fear them.
No question. But it is fantastic. I remember the late Queen, you know, she would always lean over the carriage to check what the ground was like. And I think after many years of practice going down the straight mile at Ascot, she became a total expert on ground without even having to push a stick in the ground.
Chris Stickles probably learned a thing or two.
He would have learned a thing or two from her, but it's such a wonderful sight, and not long now before the national anthem follows. But yeah, they come through the great park. It's all very quiet there and beautiful and serene.
Do people line the route in the park as well?
They begin to. Your school children, and then sort of some elderly folk also there who've been probably waiting for some time. And it must be serene and extraordinary for them to see this sight suddenly appear in the park. But then when you get to the Queen Anne gates, that's a different thing altogether. There's suddenly this wall of sound. And I remember the first time I ever did it, it was the cry went up, and who the hell are you? So I put very much back in my box.
You were all right once you came through the gates, though, because then everybody knows exactly who you are, Harry. How long does it take to get from Windsor Castle to the paddock, do you think?
It's probably 5 or 10 minutes. You know, it's very special. But it's a wonderfully, almost soporific, because of the clip-clop and the way the carriage moves and sways, and it's another world completely. And the horses are so beautiful. And on a hot day like today, of course, probably when they come here in the parade ring behind us, there'll probably be a few with the odd bead of sweat on them. But easier than heavy conditions, which is obviously much trickier when the ground's very soft.
And it's just lovely that it's not raining, which we're thrilled about as well for everybody, particularly the crowd who've made their way to the front of the barriers there to see this procession. Will be hearing the national anthem in just a moment or two's time. The odd Ascot brolly there to thankfully just shade people from the sun rather than the rain here. But it's absolutely packed to the rafters all the way up the track there. Maybe Windsor is the place to be if you want to get a good look at that, and a little bit of inside info for you as they approach the paddock. Won't be too long. The security have made their way into the paddock here, so it won't be too long before they make their way in.
The Queen's hat by Philip Tracy is absolutely stunning, isn't it? Yeah. As is Lady Bamford's, of course. Yeah. But that is very special indeed. And I love the way your description, duck egg blue.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I was told.
Very chic, isn't it? I think the crowds have been terrific. I'd love to. Oh, here comes the national anthem.
I was just about to say that, Harry. It really is. I think this is potentially the strongest crowd of the week, certainly for the procession.
For a Friday. I know Thursday and Saturday are meant to be the biggest days, but look at this sight around this parade ring. Nothing else like it in the world. It's wonderful.
Do you know what the crowd around the parade ring aren't going to get the advantage of, which our viewers at home are, is finding out about your horses that you run. So let's get back onto safe territory, Harry, because I'd love to know about Soprano in the Sandringham, third in the Albany, so Royal Ascot form.
Yeah, she's a wonderful filly. We haven't managed to win with her since her debut. Her second start was here this day last year in the Albany, and she was placed there. And she's not the easiest filly. And I think we've also probably got her trip wrong. So she's running a mile for the first time today in the Sandringham. Bit of a cavalry charge, 30 runners. But she loves this ground. She's in great shape. And she has been running very well in black type races pretty much every time she's run. So we're hopeful that she'll run a big race.
Well, good luck with her. Now tell us, should we have £1 each way on Defiance? Because on the face of it, Defiance is an outsider, but I guess you'd forgive anything a modest run in a Lingfield Derby trial.
Yeah, he was very disappointing that day, and we really don't know what went wrong. Was it ground? Was it the rhythm of the race? He's such a good horse at home. So we're trying again. We're giving him our best shot, and but he will be a big price. So very small bet.
Yeah, and you mentioned Believing.
And Believing rose again on Saturday. She's in terrific form, and we're very excited to be running her back and running her over 6 furlongs.
Yeah. Good. Well, Harry, that's the first time we've had 3 cheers here this week.
Is it?
Yeah.
My goodness.
So
there you go. Isn't it wonderful? Maybe that's all part of this atmosphere that this packed out parade ring can give.
Some of the Cleveland Bays are getting a little warm there, and unsurprisingly, Believing and Approval then tomorrow. I mean, you mentioned Believing turning out again quickly. I was blown away with her at Haydock.
Oh, she's so good. She ran a wonderful race to finish a close-up 4th on Tuesday. And she got a bit rushed off her feet early, so 6 furlongs tomorrow will be easier for her. Not an easy race, but she's running for 1 million. I mean, and she seems to have bounced out of Tuesday's race very well. Otherwise, of course, we wouldn't be running her. But George is very happy. George Bowie's very happy with her, and wonderful for owners to have have a run twice in the week at Royal Ascot in very valuable, important races.
We've seen it done with the sprinters time and time again. They can take that.
They can do that, and having horses in Australia now, it's a sort of usual thing to back them up there, but not so much here. But she's in great shape, and we've got a horse called Approval with William Haggis, who runs in the mile and a quarter handicap, and I would fancy him to tickle him up. So, maybe have a little bit on him as well. I think he'll run very well.
Great. Well, exciting times for you, Harry. And what do you do with yourself for the rest of the day? Are you entertaining owners?
Yes, there's a lot of entertaining owners. There's the Royal Ascot Racing Club, a club I helped start for Ascot way back when in 1998 or so. So there's a lovely team in there. Yeah, we've got plenty of owners for both horses running today. It's a very big grandstand to get around. I tell you, by the time you get home this evening, your little feet, or not so little in my case,
no, exactly. If you wear
they've had a bit of a workout.